All right, this is a project we're working on here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the entire process of getting ready to run an area of good maps. This is, I think, the single biggest problem in PoE, and I think I want to write a post about it. I'm going to make a post on Reddit, but I think that it sounds like whining when you write about it without really seeing the process of making not even excellent maps, just decent maps. So let's do that now. The first thing we have to do, because I am, so let's talk through how this is going to work. I have a quad tab, which, for the record, costs money, and this process would be much more miserable without this quad tab. So that's an issue all by itself, I think. B, I have a ton of unrolled maps here, although a couple have something wrong with them. So let's just take those out to the side. All right. So before I do this, though, so I use this as my dump tab. Whenever I'm playing the game, I just dump here until it's full, and then I sort. So this tab here is the result of like several different dump all my tier 15s here, convert all my tier 15s up to, or tier 14s up to 15, and then dump them too. So keep in mind when you look at this tab, I've already done what I'm about to do with my tier 14s twice, and I didn't record that. So we're just going to do the last one. Our goal with this step, we want whites or yellows. So the way we can get whites out of blues is two blues and a white, downgrade to a white. And yellows, we want to, all yellow will give us another yellow. Although this step is less important because it's not like alks are incredibly valuable or anything. It's just, we're doing it, so we might as well do it this way. So our goal is one white, two blues as many times as we can, and then all the leftover whites just get combined. So, yeah. We're recording this and talking through this because I really think this needs to be fixed in some meaningful way. I've been paying attention to how long I spend in this game not playing this game. And the really insidious part is every time I try to time save by cutting steps out of this process I'm going to demo for you, what I find is the efficiency loss is staggeringly bad. And I know a lot of. So in PoE 1, I'm an Alk and Go player. I do not do a lot of the crazy stuff you need to do in PoE 1 to be a very lucrative, high reward player. And that's because usually when I make builds in PoE 1, they're just simply not good enough to play a super juiced map. In PoE 2, super juiced maps aren't that much harder, if I'm being real with you. And the problem with that, that sounds like a good thing at first blush, but the problem with that is if the maps aren't that much harder, then your build doesn't need to be all that good before juicing is really, really good. And so what I've found is, frankly, we still have some more 14s in here because, of course, we do. So we'll get all these taken care of too. What I've found is that every time I try to simplify the process, all that ends up happening is I just really, really end up, you know, less profitable by a lot, and for very little reason when it comes to the actual game. Like the maps aren't easier, they're not safer, they're not less dangerous, and it's certainly not like they give more experience or anything else. Like there's simply no benefit to playing bad maps in this game. So this was step one. I've done this probably like 15 times at this point. So, very first step. Let's get everything to the point where it's yellow. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our alks. And we're going to grab our augmentations. And we're going to grab regals. So we're going to go to this tab. We're going to alk everything we can alk. One of the downsides to a quad tab, we don't actually see very easily. This is kind of miserable. Um, I should really have this bound to scroll wheel at this point, but I hate doing that. Um, I don't know why. It's just always, it's one of those tactile things that really bothers me for some reason I can't really explain. Um, so we alk everything we can alk. We aug anything that's currently a rare. So any blue maps need an aug if they have only one mod, and then we'll regal. And what that's going to end us up with is a bunch of maps that have at least 3 mods, but most will have 4 or more because they'll either be alked or they rolled rare. Let's just do one more double check. Like I said, it's really hard to see, but I think we got all of them. This is so this all by itself is not super fun, to be entirely honest. Like, but this part, if this was where mapping ended or map prep ended, I wouldn't be thrilled, but it also wouldn't be the end of the world. There are going to be several points where my strategy diverges from an actually like hyper, super, ultra meta strategy, and I will endeavor to call all of those that I know about out as we miss them. So, okay. Like I said, at this point, all of our maps are at least rare. Really quick, rare. Yeah, okay. Every map is rare. We're going to pull, I think that's garbage. That goes up here. That's garbage. That's garbage. That goes up here. Garbage. Okay. The first thing we're going to do, remove any map with gold. So increased gold found in area is a brick mod for every build in the game. You can't run these maps. Whoops, grabbed that. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Suffice to say, gold occupies space that other mods could roll. Then we're going to remove the mods that brick me, which is going to be maximum player. So maximum player resists. Technically, I could probably play this, but yeah, we're not going to. That's not my life. And then we're going to do penetrates. I think technically if I was a little more overcapped on resist, those would be... How did a 14 get in there? Are there any other 14s in here? No. Okay, good. Somehow we have one single 14 mixed into that pile. Okay, so all of these maps right off the bat are trash. We're just going to throw these in a random tab. Technically I use this tab for something, but fuck it. Life goes on. Alright, so round 1 of culling our tab is done. The next thing we're going to do is go buy another buy more exalted, because the next thing we have to do is exalt all of these maps to 6 mod. Isn't this fun? Aren't we having fun? Again, honestly, if this was the whole process, I wouldn't, like, this sucks, but it's like a manageable level of suck. Okay, so let's talk about the first step where we're diverging from a good map rolling for like an ultra hyper ultra super real map rolling strategy. I do not run tier 16s in my normal day-to-day life. If I want to run a tier 16 because I have a really juiced map node that I really want like the perfect map on, I will go buy one for a div when I need it. And I do that maybe once a session, twice a session. I don't do it often. However, if I was playing tier 16s routinely, our next step would be instilling every single map before we corrupt it. So, as everyone knows, once you corrupt a map, once you corrupt an item, it's no longer modifiable. And in this case, one moment, I apologize. So in this case, the only way to get a tier 16 is to corrupt a tier 15 and randomly generate the effect, increase the map's tier by 1 level. What that means is everything else you want to do to the map needs to be done before you corrupt it, obviously. So by running tier 15s, I can just instill maps as I want to. So, like, for example, if I decide I'm going to go, do breach maps, I can say, okay, I want the rare monster instill. We're going to run out of exalts, aren't we? I really didn't want to have to buy another. Fuck. Oh, wait, I know what I can do. Sorry, we're going to be efficient here because converting a div right before bed is... okay, we're at everything. Never mind. We are doing a div. Sad days. Okay. Where was I? Okay. So right now, the way I do this, let's say I'm about to go run a really good map. So I want, here's one of my already rolled high quality maps. 19% quantity, 126 rarity, no scary mods. This is my favorite kind of map. So I would go over here. I would grab Distilled Paranoia, which I'm sold out of. I love mapping. Isn't this the best, guys? Although, so normally I buy these in like piles of, not piles of 50, that's for darn sure, but. So yeah, I would take this, I would go boink, 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 boink. 45% increased rare monsters, area's delirious. So at a glance, you can immediately see also why this is important in terms of making a good map, because 45% more rare monsters in a map where you hit like 5 breaches is a lot more rare monsters. This is not really an optional step. Because I'm not corrupting, that's fine. But insightful people might have noticed this interface doesn't have any way to interact with it in bulk. Every single instill is 3 clicks to put 3 paranoias in, 1 click to put the map in, instill, click, click to get the map out, repeat. Just for the record, I don't even know how many maps in here, but it's not a few. It's not a small number of maps sitting here. I'm not going to count live on stream to figure out, or not live, but you know what I mean. Don't do me like that. But there's gotta still be like 50, 60 maps there, if not more. That's a lot. That's very extra. And it's not an optional step. The difference between an instilled map and an uninstilled map is a gigantic profit delta, both in terms of the passive income of having all of your extra delirium splinters, but just in terms of the map density. It's huge. It's insane. And even if you're not willing to spend as much as a paranoia costs, for 1/3 the price, you can be doing greeds, which are 24% magic find for three greeds. So like, even if you don't want to spend the money on paranoias, understandably, 24% magic find on every map you run for 3 exalts worth of greeds is obviously worth it. Super, super, super worth it. So even if you weren't doing paranoias on every single one of these before you corrupt them, you should at least be doing greeds. And that's before we corrupt them. Which, keep in mind, only 1/8 of these, if we corrupted them, would hit tier 16. It's a 25% chance to hit up or down a level, and then half of those go up. So all of the work we're about to do, keep in mind 1/8 of it would spit out a tier 16 that you actually want to run if you're running tier 16s. That's part of why I settle for tier 15s. So anyway, back to main topic. We're back on gold, and we got not super lucky here, which is sad. So again, anything with gold on it, instant brick. All of these except that one. Although that one's going to be a brick in a second. Quick readers. See that coming. So same thing again. Penetrate resistances. Boom. Unfortunately, gold seems like a particularly common prefix. And then we do players. Those go. Those go. These just get dumped anywhere. It doesn't really matter. All right. So at this point, I have finally removed every map I don't want to run. Every map I can't run or don't want to run. So at this point, after culling about half of my tier 15s, we're finally ready to do the next step in this process, which is sort these into maps I actually do want to run. So step 1. The way I sort is like this. We're going to do a descending quality, essentially. So at the very bottom, you have maps that have significant amounts of both rarity and quantity. And as you go upward, the maps get worse from there. I used to worry about offensive stats on these maps, and I no longer do that at all. That's the reason we sort every offensive mod I am scared of. Because as long as we've done that in advance, so this process here is part of the reason I'm not convinced that a Waystone tab solves this problem. If you're watching this, you can see how just a Waystone tab wouldn't really help me at all. And the reason I say that is straight up, because the quality of the map on the atlas can vary so wildly, it's important I know how good a map I'm using. So like, look at how good this map is. 25 quantity, 110 rarity. That should be down here. I'm an idiot. Anything over 100 should be bottom row. But, so you see what I'm saying here. If I get a really, really juiced Waystone, or Atlas region, and I use, this map on it, I'm going to be very sad. It doesn't do anything. The difference between this map and this map is ridiculous, insane, bonkers. And the problem with that is, as far as a Waystone thingy is concerned, those are both tier 15 maps. They're not anything special. One isn't better than the other. One isn't anything special. And that's tricky. That's honestly difficult, in my opinion. And you can see, because this is all manual, like, I make mistakes here. I have to reread all this crap when I actually go to run these maps a lot. So we need to check for rarity of items. So anything with moderate rarity goes here. Anything over 100 goes there. Anything under 80. So yeah, we do essentially like 3 tiers of rarity as well. I want this series to show the entire process start to finish. So I'm recording all this because I think it makes a valuable point, and that point is this is not something that is, one Waystone tab away from good, or one, this isn't a small tweak away from acceptable. This is a tremendous amount of work. And if you don't do this work, you will have a dramatically worse experience in maps. I'm reasonably confident a lot of the variants both players and devs are describing is because some people arrived at a process like this relatively early in the mapping process and they don't actually know what it's like to run really shitty maps or just randomly run whatever Waystone they've alked on their way out the door. But I can tell you, because I did Elk and Go for the first 4 weeks of PoE, and I didn't do Waystones well for the first 4 weeks of PoE, man, this is a very different game when you do this stuff. So, yeah. Remember, if I was corrupting all of these, I would be instilling them now. So just as a friendly reminder, we got to skip that step for all of these maps. So we aren't done here either, though. What are we doing next? What we're doing now is cleaning this up a little bit because I am neurotic in the extreme. So all these leftover maps don't have rarity on them. However, there is something I do want. I want 8 suffix maps. Sorry, 6 suffix maps. One of the possible outcomes of a corruption is all of the map mods turn to prefixes or suffixes. I want suffixes, and we'll talk about why with an example. So every single map we've got left here gets a corruption. Sad days. Hopefully that wasn't important, whatever that was. If we run out of vowels as well, I'm just going to quit life. That's still, I think that's it. Okay. So we're going to do a couple. So there were 3 possible outcomes. So corrupting a map, 4 possible outcomes. 25% nothing happens, 25% up or down a tier, 25% all prefixes or suffixes, 25% 2 more mods on the map. So we're going to do a couple things. So first we're checking for gold again. Anything with gold, still trash. Then we're going to check player resist again. And we're going to check penetrate. Done. Okay. So that's all the brick mods gone. Now we're going to look through this list and we're looking for stuff like this. Why? With 520% base Waystone drop chance increase, when we run a Citadel, we're guaranteed 2 and very likely to get 3 doodads. Things Citadels drop that's not called a tablet, it's called a fragment. Fragment is the word. So there's a really, really juicy one. I've seen as many as 4 drop. I think 4 is possible. I know 3 is extremely possible. So all of these are basically just purely for Citadels. And this is quite valuable for the record. Like, Citadel stuff is almost a div a pop right now. This part of the process should not be skipped and is quite valuable. I don't worry as much about these not being delirious because, quite frankly, my number 1 priority in a Citadel map is not dying. I'm not too worried about, a little bit of passive income at all. So if you remember, what I mentioned, one of the possible outcomes was getting all prefixes as well. So now we're going to check again for quantity. Ooh, see? This flipped to all prefixes, and it's a really good map now. Nice. We might have a couple others that are at least decent. Decent. I don't know what I'm doing with this, but I'll put it over there for now. Oh, I do know what I'm doing with this. I used to separate out higher than normal. I don't know why I did that, to be entirely honest. That one can go there, though. Okay. So anything left over here, trash. Um, Technically, I do part out the tier 16s at this point. You can see with this little pile. And again, this kind of makes the point here. Notice we just corrupted an awful lot of maps. And notice how few tier 16s we got out of that. Now, obviously, I've sorted a lot of maps already. But even so, I would have distilled 60, 70 maps and then corrupted to end up with 10 or 12 real maps. And that's normal. That's a super, like, this isn't super poor RNG on my side. That's what you'd expect. Which is really, really bad. I am officially out of places to throw garbage. You know what we'll do? I should have been doing this the whole time, to be honest. Okay. So at this point, I consider rolling my maps complete. Like I said, in a real strategy, we would have to distill in advance. I instead distill as I go because, as you can see here, very few of the maps I'm going to run are corrupted. And I tend to use these corrupted maps for edge case scenarios or maps that already have inherent delirium on them. I make an effort to pick out corrupted maps for any of those maps. Because as you may not know, actually, I shouldn't say as you know, but because if the map has delirium, like a delirium gate on it, like that, if a map has that on it, you can't use, well, you can use an instilled map, but it will negate the gate. So, okay. That was part one. I'm going to stop the recording here. We'll jump back in with part two.